Okay, so this is seriously the most fun ever, 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 ever. I love trig identities, and I'm hoping you guys do too. Okay, so first and foremost, you have got to remember to keep your reference sheet beside you until you learn these things. You may not ever remember them completely, but you will be able to derive them if you can just remember the basics, okay? If you don't, keep that beside you for a while. You're just going to scream. Ain't nobody want to be scaring no neighbors, okay? All right, so here's the main ones right here. The sine is the same thing as 1 over cosecant, I'm sorry. So cosecant and sine are together. Cosecant and sine. And then cosine and secant. Cosine and secant. Then tangent, if you remember that tangent is sine over cosine, but it's also 1 over cotangent. All right? So if you remember these three right here, then you just flip them, and the inverse is true over here. So cosecant equals 1 over sine. Okay? Secant equals 1 over cosine. Cotangent, instead of sine over cosine, it's cosine over sine. And they're 1 over tangent. Okay? All right, then we're going back to the Pythagorean identity. Oh, now these are called trigonometric identities right there. This is called a Pythagorean identity. Now we're going to go back to a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we're going to the cosine. Remember, cosine deals with the x coordinate, if you remember that from your unit circle. So here's your x and here's your y. So we've got cosine squared plus sine squared equals c squared, and that's going to be 1. So cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta equals 1. All right? Now, you can take that and you can kind of convert it a little bit, change it just a little bit. If you want to have a tangent involved, well, you can just come over here. You'd have to have sine over cosine. Remember, sine over cosine. So I'm going to have to divide everybody by cosine, because whatever I do to one, I have to do to all. Well, cosine squared divided by cosine squared is 1. Sine squared divided by cosine squared, tangent, snap-a-doodles. And then 1 over cosine squared is going to be secant squared. Okay? See right over here? Secant squared. All right, so if you remember these three up here, 1, 2, and 3, and then if you remember cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1, then if you need to, you can memorize this tangent right here. You can memorize that one too. Or you can just try to derive it on your own. Either one is fine. Okay, so now let's take this and let's see how we apply it. So if they give us something like this and tell us that we need to simplify it. So you got secant theta times cosine theta. Well, first of all, you got to figure out, take everything to sine and cosine if you can. Bring it all back down to sine and cosine. All right, so let's take secant and turn it into sine or cosine. Well, we understand that secant is 1 over cosine. All right, since this is a fraction right here, this is going to need to be a fraction. Then we're going to cancel those puppies out, and we get 1. Ta-da! All right, next. All right, cotangent and sine. All right, turn them both into sine and cosine the best you can. All right, cotangent, remember, tangent is sine over cosine. So cotangent is cosine over sine. Then he's a fraction, so we're going to make him a fraction. Cancel them out. Booyah! Cosine. Okay, next. Tangent squared theta times cosecant squared theta. Get them into sine and cosine. All right, tangent is sine squared over cosine squared. Cosecant, we remember, is 1 over sine squared. Cosecant is 1 over sine, so squared is squared. All right, reduce or basically cancel out the sine squared. You got 1 over cosine squared, and we remember that is secant squared theta. Okay? See, all these, you're just, and you kind of did this on the quizzes as well. You're just taking them and simplifying them. That's all you're doing with it. All right, so now we've got tangent theta over secant theta. Okay, so first of all, we're going to say that the tangent is sine over cosine. Then instead of the line right here, I'm going to go ahead and say divided by. I'm just going to go ahead and break it out. Not everybody does it this way, but for me it's kind of easier because I know I'm going to make secant into something else as well, sine and cosine and stuff. So I'm just going to say sine over cosine is tangent divided by 1 over cosine. All right, then I can just do keep, change the division to multiplication, and I'm going to flip this right here. So it's going to be cosine over 1. All right, then I'm going to cancel those two, and that's just going to leave me with plain old sine. All right? Okay, so now what I want you to do is you're going to go complete the Alex assignment, the 11 trig identities, day 1. Now what they're going to do is you're going to have a lot like these right here, but then it's going to come back and it's going to have, it's going to ask you, you're going to try to, they're going to do a proof, they're going to do a proof, and then they're going to ask you which identity or which rule they're going to use. So you're going to either say trigonometric rule identity or Pythagorean identity or algebra or something like that. But I suggest looking at the example for the first few. I think it's like number 4, 5, and 6 or something like that. But look at the example first and you'll see kind of what they're looking for. Or you can just click the little drop down button and it'll show you your options, and that may be enough for you. Okay? Alrighty. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Text me if you need me, and I will try to have office hours every day. I'll kind of text you and let you know. All right, bye.